Okay, welcome everyone to the meeting of the State of Hawaii Board of Agriculture. I am the chair, Sharon Hurd. Prior to calling the meeting to order, Jason will give us explain how the public can participate in this hybrid meeting, which can be accessed by video conference, telephone, or in person.
As an attendee, your microphone will be automatically muted during the meeting, unless you are providing testimony. For each agenda item you wish to testify on, please click the Raise Hand button found on your Zoom screen. Board staff will individually enable each testifier to unmute their microphone. When recognized by the chair, please unmute your microphone before speaking and mute your microphone after you finish speaking in order to prevent audio feedback. When testifying, you will be asked to identify yourself and the organization, if any, that you represent. Each testifier will be limited to 2 minutes of testimony per agenda item. If you are dialing in by phone, when the chairperson asks for public testimony, you may indicate you want to testify by entering star and then 9 on your phone's keypad. After entering star and then 9, a voice prompt will let you know that the host of the meeting has been notified. When recognized by the chairperson, you may unmute yourself by pressing star and then 6 on your phone. A voice prompt will let you know that you are unmuted. Once you are finished speaking, please enter star and then 6 again to mute yourself. Thank you.
Thank you, Jason. Testifiers are reminded that there is a 2-minute limit of testimony per agenda item. Calling the meeting to order, 9:05 a.m. I will take a roll call vote of the members present. When your name is called, please indicate your presence with a here or present, and state who, if anyone, over the age of 18 is present in the room with you. This also serves as a roll call vote. For each subsequent vote, I will ask if there are any objections or recusals. If there are none, then the motion will be approved on the same basis as the initial roll call. Sharon Hurd, present. Deputy Director Ryan Kanaka-Ole.
Present and alone.
Thank you. Dr. Parwinder Grewal.
Present and alone.
Thank you. Deputy Director Dane Wicker.
Present alone.
Thank you. Diane Lane.
Present, and no one over the age of 18 is with me.
Thank you, Diane. Nathaniel Oswald.
Present, and I'm alone.
Thank you, Nathaniel. Fred Cowell, who will be joining us after 10:30. Randy Cabral.
Morning, present and alone.
And Young.
Morning, present and alone.
And James Gomes.
Kakayaka, present and alone.
Thank you. With the members present, we do have quorum. And we'll continue with the approval of the minutes for October 22nd, the meeting that day. May I have a motion to approve the October 22nd minutes?
So moved, Jimmy.
Thank you, Jimmy. Second?
Second, Diane.
Thank you, Diane. Does anyone from the public wish to give testimony? Hearing none.
Oh, sorry, there are.
Recognizing, who would that be?
Janet, if you can state your name and organization if you have it, please.
Good morning. Hi, my name is Janet Ashman, and I'm speaking on behalf of the Hawaii Farm Bureau. I wasn't sure this is the right time to bring it up, but I do want to give testimony on one of the agenda items.
Not at this time, Janet. We're approving the minutes at this point.
Right. So I wasn't clear on whether you just wanted testimony on the minutes. I'm sorry to interrupt.
Oh, not at all, Janet. We'll
Thank
talk
you.
later. Mm-hmm.
Okay, all hands are down.
Oh, thank you. Board discussion. Hearing, seeing none. Calling for the vote. Are there any objections or recusals? Hearing none, the motion to approve the minutes as read is approved. Going on to the communications from divisions and the administrations. We're going to go to item A, Agricultural Loan Division, request for approval of one Class A loan. Okay, Sean? Is there someone online to do the present? May I have a motion to approve the request? Oh, thank you,
So-
Diane.
So moved, Diane.
Second, Jimmy.
Thank you, Jimmy. Presentation by staff.
Good morning. I'm Jillian Scheibe with the Agricultural Loan Division of the Kona office. I'll be presenting the loan request for Taishan Farms Incorporated with co-borrowers William Kevin Begeman and Ada Esther Zamora. They're requesting a Class A direct farm ownership loan in the amount of $165,400. The 2-acre fee simple farm is located in Hawaii Ocean View Estates down in Kau. They specialize in dragon fruit, vegetables, and herbs. This loan request will enable the applicants to pay off a balloon payment due on a short-term financing and fully amortize the balance over the proposed term. The proposed term is 30 years with fixed interest rate of 7.5%, monthly principal and interest payment of $1,157 until maturity. The loan will be secured by a first position mortgage on the 2 farming parcels, which have been assessed market land value of $96,600. The farming space is 2 acres that is fully fenced and irrigated, subdivided by a trellis system for the dragon fruit. There's also a permitted 320 square foot shed, a farm stand, and 2 tool sheds. A junior position will be taken on the residential parcel with a market value of $516,500. The residential acre includes a 2,188 square foot home, 500 square foot workshop, and a commercial kitchen. The loan will be further secured by a first position blanket financing statement on all crops, accounts, inventory, farm equipment, and tools. Mr. Begeman bought Taishan Farms in 2016 and began farming full-time using Korean natural farming techniques. Initially, he followed the value-added dragon fruit business model as laid out by his predecessor, selling at the Keho Farmers Market. Though by 2018, his primary crop began showing a slight distress as the weather changed to be wetter. Miss Zamora joined the farm in 2018, starting in the kitchen and building up to more duties before becoming a partner in 2020. They have began diversifying their crops to include more fruits such as lolokoi and pineapple, along with vegetables and culinary herbs to use in their value-added products. Presently, they are direct to consumer from their farm stand, having moved away from the farmer's market. By refinancing the balloon payment, Ms. Begeman and Ms. Zamora will be able to continue to farm, sell high-quality produce and value-added farm products. Staff recommends approval of the loan request.
Thank you. Does anyone from the public wish to give testimony?
No hands.
No hands raised. Board discussion. Oh, is that Randy? Randy?
Yeah, thanks, Chair. A couple questions. The parcels are valued at 96,000, yet the sellers financed the parcels for 180,000. Can you explain that? And then the second part is, if I look at the farm income for 21, 22, 23, it's pretty substantial. Yet on the projection, you look at the farm income, it's substantially less. So what is the difference between those 3 years and the projection? Why is there such a big difference?
Having moved away from the farmer's market, you're looking at that they don't have the same volume of sales. They are saving a lot on labor costs and things of that nature. But at this time, they are pretty much not, well, they're not at the Keho Farmers Market anymore. So that's going to be a pretty big difference.
Okay, can you explain the difference in the value then, the loan value versus the property value?
Yeah, so that is going to be because they bought Taishan Farms and its branding as well. They bought the whole system, the tools and all the equipment. The tax assessed is based off of one of the parcels being quite undervalued in my opinion, but I'm not a tax assessor and I'm not going to be playing in that pool. But right, the tax assessor does not give, they give stuff for permitted features. So the farm stand, which is there, the trellis systems, which are there, the irrigation that is throughout, those are not being included in the value of the tax assessed amount, along with, again, the brand power of the Taishan Farms and all the marketing that had been built up by the predecessor was included in those values as well.
Okay, yeah, that's a substantial difference in income based on just the farmer's market, but okay, thank you.
Thank you, Randy. Thank you, Jill. Any additional questions from the board? Board discussion? Hearing, seeing none. We're gonna call for the vote. Are there any objections or recusals? Hearing none, the motion is approved. We have a request to move on item C6 from the Ag Resource Management category. Okay, so item C6, everyone, if we could move there. All right. Item 6, request from the Ag Resource Management Division, request to rescind a prior board action approving assignment of general lease number S-4775, Henry M. Terada and Lorraine M. Y. Terada, Lesay and Sinor, Jinghua Wang, assignee, and number 2, request to consent to assignment of general lease number S-4775, Henry M. Terada and Lorraine M. Terada as lessee assignor, James William McCully assignee, TMK 2-2-056-054, lot 28, Panaeva Agricultural Park, Waiakea, South Hilo, Island of Hawaii, Hawaii. May I have a motion to approve the request?
So moved, Chair. Diane.
Diane, is there a second?
Second,
Jimmy.
Thank you, Jimmy. Presentation by staff.
Good morning, Chair, members of the board. I'm Broman Ligas with Big Island's Department of Ag Resource Management Division. I'll be presenting this request to rescind the board's prior action approving the assignment of lease 4775 from Henry and Lorraine Terada to Jinghua Wang and requesting the consent of assignment of lease 4775 from the Teradas to James William McCully. On April 27, 1982, the Board of Land and Natural Resources issued General Lease 4775, a 55-year lease to Mr. and Mrs. Henry Terada, which was transferred to the Department of Ag by Governor's Executive Order 3378, dated February 26, 1988. On May 8, 2024, the lessee's request for a 30-year extension was approved in accordance with Act 213. The extension lengthened the lease term by 30 years, beginning on January 1st, 2037, running through December 31st, 2066. For the past 42 years, Mr. and Mrs. Terada have been excellent stewards of the land. They developed a thriving and successful interim operation. However, due to physical ailments, their ability to maintain the farm has become more and more difficult. In accordance with the HDOA in terms of the lease, Mr. and Mrs. Terada are requesting to assign general lease to James William McCully. James McCully has over 45 years of farming experience, and he is the owner of Mauna Kea Orchids, which is one of the leading breeders in the Oncidium Alliance worldwide. Mr. McCully's plan of utilization and development is to continue the current interim operation, and he also plans on planting coffee using nursery grown plants from his coffee farm. Mr. McCully qualifies as a bona fide farmer with more than 2 years of full-time farming experience and satisfies the eligibility requirements pursuant to the HDOA. There is a consideration of $125,000 for the assignment of the lease, and it includes a farm structure, shade houses, a large plant inventory. The lease does not include a participation clause. The recommendation is that we request that the Board of Agriculture rescind its prior approval of the assignment of General Lease 4775 from Henry and Lorraine Terada to Jinghua Wang, the assignee, and consent to the assignment of lease 4775 from the Teradas to James William McCully, and the consideration of the $125,000. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Does anyone from the public wish to give testimony? No hands? Board discussion. No hands, hearing, nope. Seeing, hearing none, calling for the vote. Are there any objections or refusals? Hearing, seeing none, the motion is approved. Thank you.
Thank you.
So we're moving on to the top of the agenda, which is to move on to the plant quarantine ranch, I believe. So first is item B, plant industry division pesticides. Okay, the proposed amendment to the list of state restricted use pesticides to include a new active ingredient. Prohibited. Anyway, may I have a motion to approve the request? Thank you, Diane.
No, Chair, actually,
Yes.
may I request to defer this action? Or I have some concerns about proposal.
You probably want, I think you might have a presentation first.
Oh,
You would need public testimony. So you would have to at least have some public testimony.
so Diane, apparently, if it's okay with you, we'll entertain your motion to defer, but we still will take public testimony.
That's fine. I don't know if there's a second to my motion anyway, so.
I'll
Is
second.
there I'm sorry, Brandy, did you second the motion to defer?
Yes, second.
Okay. Public testimony, a presentation first.
Yeah, I think you probably want just the staff presentation, then public testimony, and then you could take up the motion to defer as the first item for consideration.
Okay. Presentation by staff.
Good morning, Chairperson and members of the board. My name is Scott Nishimoto, and I am the Program Compliance Officer and Acting Pesticides Program Manager. The Pesticides Branch would like to request to amend the list of state restricted use pesticides to include a new active ingredient, blue pyridifurone. I have subject matter expert Esther Reichert with me.
Shall I just introduce myself? Go ahead. Okay, so I am Esther Reichert with Hawaii Department of Agriculture, Pesticides Branch, and I deal with the pesticide registrations for the state of Hawaii. So, a groundwater review contract was issued in 2021 until 2026 to review new active ingredients, not including flupyridifurone. And this is to evaluate existing groundwater modeling systems with the Pesticides Branch current model players. And just to give a little bit of background, flupyridifurone already underwent the groundwater review model with Claire's that we currently have back in 2015. And it was suggested that this chemical would be, has a high potential to leach into the state's groundwater. So going back, we currently have a contract to review the current model along with existing models. If the results of the contract conclude that Claire's is no longer a sufficient modeling tool, then the Pesticides Branch may re-review flupyridifurone using the new model. In addition, when funds are available, an in-field study may be attempted to help determine if the state restricted use status is warranted. If the in-field study is funded and the results of that study do not support the state restriction, or if a new groundwater model is established and the results of running flupyridifurone through the new model suggest flupyridifurone is not a potential leacher, then the Pesticides Branch will request the removal of the active ingredient on the state restricted use list. So a brief background on the active ingredient flupyridifurone. It is a systemic insecticide that is federally registered for use on a variety of crops such as brassica, cucurbit, coffee, fruiting, leafy, bulb, tuberous, and corn vegetables, citrus, pome, and stone fruits, and more. Application methods consist of foliar spray, soil drench, and chemigation. Let's see. So to date, there are 9 federally registered products containing flupyridiferen registered under a variety of registrants. Currently, there are 2 state registered products containing flupyridiferen that are currently registered as general use products. There have been 3 withdrawn applications and 2 applications pending. Let's see, on October 2nd, 2024, the proposed amendments were discussed with the Governor's Advisory Committee on Pesticides. A motion was made to recommend that flupyridiferen become a restricted use pesticide pending the completion of the groundwater study. Again, if the study does not support that flupyridiferen is a groundwater leacher, then the restricted use status will be withdrawn. The Advisory Committee on Pesticides voted and the motion was passed. And a copy of the minutes have been attached. So based on the environmental fate data that was provided to the branch, along with the full groundwater review conducted in 2015, the branch recommends that flupyridiferen be added to the state's department list of state restricted use pesticides on January 1st, 2027. This will allow the current registered products to finish the rest of their licensing period as general use pesticides. And it will also give time for the department to educate the applicators and the dealers of the new state restricted use status of the products.
Thank you, Esther. Does anyone from Okay, does anyone from the public wish to give testimony? Great time she was down.
No, there's someone else that we just allowed.
Oh, okay.
I'll start with Janet. Janet, if you can please state your name and your organization.
Yes, thank you. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Thank you. My name is Janet Ashman, and I'm speaking on behalf of the Hawaii Farm Bureau. And I think you all know what our mission is. We represent all types and sizes of farms and ranches in the state. We are very concerned about this proposal, and I'll explain why. The Hawaii Farm Bureau is a statutorily mandated member of the Advisory Committee on Pesticides, and we did attend the meeting on October 2nd, excuse me. We have serious concerns about the way the meeting was conducted. I'm sorry? I assume you can still hear me. I heard some interference.
You're
Hello?
good. Go
Oh, okay, thank you, sorry. Unfortunately, the meeting consisted of mostly new members to the committee who were not provided with any orientation or communication about how the meeting would work, what their role was, how votes were taken, etc. We do applaud the department and the branch, pesticide branch, for scheduling that meeting, since a meeting had not been scheduled in the past 5 years. So the problem with what happened at the meeting was that questions were raised concerning, for example, do other states restrict this pesticide? How many farmers or ranchers use this, and what quantities are they used? Is this a necessary pesticide? Are there alternatives to it? What happens if it becomes a restricted use? Will farmers still use it? Do they have certified applicators so that they can legally use it, as that's one of the requirements for using an RUP? There were many questions. Those questions were not answered. Prematurely, a motion was made to restrict the use, to RUP it, and I had tried to make a motion to not restrict it until a groundwater review was done, not using the very controversial model, the CLARES model, that's been used but problematic since at least 2010, when I was on the Pesticide Advisory Committee previously. I'm sorry if I'm not being clear, but that model has problems. So like Esther stated, the model is going to be looked at now. There's a contract out with UH to do that. And we don't understand why we would want to use that model and RUP this now at this time when we could get better information in the coming year. So I'm really happy to answer questions. There's a lot that I haven't covered. One of which, for example, is that the draft minutes that you have are not complete, but you will notice that there was a 5-4 vote. We as members were very confused about the process, about what was happening. And once the vote was taken, another motion was not made to do the opposite. This process seems to be backwards. We're going to list this as an RUP, and then when we get more information, we're going to withdraw the RUP status. By that time, the registrant could pull it from Hawaii because our sales in Hawaii aren't that big to make it worthwhile. The farmers could stop using it permanently because it's such a stigma to use a RUP. The public is completely against RUP use, and they could boycott or the farms that use it. It's very problematic. This motion, I think, is premature. And I'd be happy to answer any questions. I do want to mention too that when I was researching on my own the active ingredient, and I'll just call it pesticide F because it's hard to pronounce. EPA does not restrict this pesticide federally. The states can, but what states do, we don't even know if any do or if the majority do. But EPA classifies this as a reduced risk pesticide, meaning that they pose less risk to human health and the environment than other pesticides allowed for the same use. So if my time is up, I'll conclude, but yeah, please ask me questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Janet. Recognizing Greg Takashima. Greg, if you can hear us, we can't hear you.
Morning, everyone. Greg Takashima. I am the acting I'm the acting plant industry administrator. Normal role is the pesticides program manager. I am here and available to answer questions for you folks. I'm sorry I'm not available to attend in person. I am feeling under the weather, which is why I have to zoom in. But in any case, yes, please let me know. In response to Janet's testimony, I can provide that there are 11 states that have restricted the use of neonicotinoids. So that's the group and class of the pesticide. The restrictions are very narrow for those uses. Generally, it's home use, lawn care use, ornamental use. It does not restrict those restrictions and for neonicotinoids, actually. It's not only flupyridiferone. Those restrictions are for not for agricultural use, right? So that leads into more discussion, but I'll be available on top of Scott and Esther to answer any other questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Greg.
We have Judson. Judson, if you can please state your name and or organization.
Hi, my name is Judson Laird. I'm alone. I don't have anyone with me. I have been involved with large scale agriculture for the past decade in, I'm sorry, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, I've been involved with large scale agricultural pest control for the last decade in Hawaii. And I wanted to give you just some thoughts from my perspective and not try to sway the vote at all, but just saying that, some of the thoughts that I've learned is that Hawaii has a really delicate insect ecosystem here. Because we don't have a winter, it's really increasingly challenging to try to manage that insect population. And the last thing that we want to do is decimate it completely. And so I have some questions on what farmers would use if this were to become a restricted use product. Flupyridiferone, it was introduced in 2014 as one of the newer pesticides. And what made it special was that it was highly selective. You could spray it with a lot of beneficials still in your field, and it would only target the pests that were ingesting your crop. So you could have a population of ladybugs, for example, and they would still survive after the application. So this was it was a ingestion only. It's not a contact type of a pesticide. And it's one of the newer chemistries. It's highly selective and considered quite safe on beneficials. Now, if you ask me if it becomes restricted, you know, and I don't use restricted products, where will I go next? You know, other general use products that I might start entertaining the idea are these products that have been made in the 1950s. Malathion. It's an organophosphate. It's dangerous for our environment, for humans. It's a contact. It kills all the insects. And so if you take this and I start using malathion, for example, instead, I ruin my ecosystem, my insect ecosystem. I throw it all out of balance. Pest population explodes. I become in a vicious circle where I continue to repeatedly apply pests. And I don't think that's the direction that we want to go as a state. Or if I don't use that, I would use dimethoate, also made in 1950s, or carbaryl. You know, all these are general use products that I would turn to that are not highly selective. They're very broad. They kill everything. And I don't think that's the direction that we want to go. I do support more funding to find out if this is a danger to the environment, because I would like to restrict it if it is. But I think the problem was that we didn't have the funds, the 500,000. And I just want to say lastly that it would be the same as if you asked me about my children and there was a medical procedure that I needed to spend 500,000 on to help them. I would do it, no question. I feel the same way about the environment here. If it's 500,000, I don't care. I'll do it. Just whatever it takes to do the right thing for the farmers. That's where I come at this. I come at it from a perspective of, if we take it, what are our alternatives? And I appreciate your time and letting me talk. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, we have L. Young. If you can state your name and or organization, please.
Hi, my name is Matt Liam. I had testimony and I listed some organizations I belong to, but I'm representing myself as an informed citizen. Thank you for letting me testify. I have a restricted use pesticide license, and I've been applying pesticide, or my company has, for 20 years. Unlike Justin, I am trying to sway this vote. My landscape company uses dozens of different pesticides and chemistries because we're looking at the mode of action. We're trying to be responsible, use safer ones, and rotate modes of action so we don't create disease resistance to pesticides in the insect population. But we will not use anything on the RUP list, despite the fact that I legally can, because once it's on the RUP list, I agree with Justin that it becomes vilified. And it's just too hard to explain to our layman customers, you know, why an RUP pesticide, when used properly, it can be safe for the environment, and even better for the environment, because it can be more specific. Yeah, and I start in the days when we just use malathion and Roundup, you know, and we'd rather use the new chemistries. And my concern is erring on the side of extreme caution, and putting it on the REP list before you do the studies is going to make our ability to use these new chemistries, which are more researched and more specific, our ability to use those are going to be even more difficult. And we're dealing in the landscape industry with coconut rhinoceros beetle. And the only effective treatment we have now to save our, not just the coconuts, but the native Hawaiian palms, are neonicotinoids, you know. And I believe this one is, it's class 4 also, but I think it is a slightly different chemistry. But we need all the tools in our arsenal that we can get to fight invasive species, little fire ant, all these things attacking our environment. Because yeah, like Justin said, we have year-round environment for insects, and we need these new chemistries to help us. But once you put it on the REP list, we're never going to use it. So thank you.
Thank you, Matt.
Can I also say something? So this is Esther Reichert, Pesticides Branch. I just want to inform everyone that the modeling system that we use was developed in collaboration with Department of Health and UH's Water Resource branch at the time. And the last update it had was in 2014. And I have been talking with other states, the majority of other states that have responded to me since October 2nd. And keep in mind that this is also the renewal season for other states. So they might not all have gotten back to me, but I had 24% responded. Almost all of them require the applicator to be licensed with the state if they are using the product for commercial use, which is not the case here in the state of Hawaii. And although none of the ones that have responded to me have restricted fluopyridiferone, the active ingredient, they have restricted other uses or other active ingredients. For example, Alaska restricts the use of all aquatic uses. South Dakota restricts all dicamba products, so on and so forth. So each state has their own unique situation in which they can further restrict active ingredients. That is all I would like to say.
Thank you.
Janet, the previous speaker, raised her hand again, would you like to respond?
Okay. Yeah.
Janet, I'm gonna let you back on. Janet, I think you're muted.
Got it. Can you hear now?
Yes.
Thank you. I just wanted to make a quick comment right now, but available for questions. This product, as Matt alluded, is not a neonicotinoid. It has some similar properties, but it is not a neonic. So, thank you.
Thank you, Janet.
I believe name was Matt. Yeah.
Hi, Matt here. Thank you. Yeah, thanks for that comment, Esther. I don't know from the ag perspective, but I'm part of the National Association of Landscape Professionals, and we do a training test. That's a national test, and they dropped the pesticide training, which I was disappointed in. And they said because every state except for Hawaii requires commercial applicators of all pesticides to have a commercial license. Hawaii, they told me, was the only state that didn't do that. So in Hawaii, we have a restricted use pesticide license, and that's it. So it's a little confusing. A lot of states require commercial certification, which is a different lower level. And I think Hawaii should actually have commercial applicators trained. It's also made it confusing for us. Some of the labels say must be applied by a commercial applicator, but not a restricted use pesticide licensee. And that's because most states, or maybe all of them, have two different classifications of commercial applicators. Thank you.
No additional hands.
No additional hands. So I'm going to ask Scott and Esther if they have any comments. None?
No comments.
Okay, so board discussion, no further discussion from the public. Oh, is Greg up?
He doesn't have his hand raised.
Okay, thank you. Anyone from the board discussion? Or do I take for discussion?
I think just to be clear, I think the current motion is to defer the matter.
Yes.
And there was a second, I believe. So just so the board is aware of the issue before.
Okay. I've been advised to let you know, Board of Agriculture, that the current motion on the floor is to defer the measure, and there was a second. So the options we have now are to defer, to vote on whether to defer. Is there discussion? Ken.
Thank you, Chair. I'm just, I think the part I'm most sensitive to is that, the advisory committee didn't feel like they had, time to really vet this. And my concern is that we defer into nothing and there's no timeline or anything to, bring this back to the board. We do have to have some kind of resolution. And I would like whatever recommendation that comes from advisory committee to be well thought and well considered. So if we are going to defer, and I can support that today. I'd like us to kick it back to the committee with a timeline if possible. If the maker of the motion would consider that friendly amendment.
Okay, thanks, Ed. We have Nathaniel.
Yeah, thanks for the opportunity. Can you guys hear me okay?
Yes.
I'm not going to say anything new that hasn't already been said, but yeah, this actually, when I heard about this, I was actually a little shocked. I don't think this is the right way to go. And has there ever been a pesticide that was added to an RUP list and then rescinded later? Do we have any evidence of actual negative impact? Is there any alternatives? What's the benefit of making an RUP? We're removing modern tools that can address so much invasive pests that are safer. If it's made an RUP and farmers have to dispose of this, who's going to pay for that disposal? How much is actually purchased and used in the state? I just think that this needs to be definitely deferred and a lot more reflection and research done on this. Thank you.
Thank you, Nathaniel. Another hand up is Randy.
You are muted, Randy.
Yeah, I just want to echo what's been said, but my recommendation that it would go back to the pesticide advisory committee for them to do a better review of the whole thing, come back with a recommendation. So that's the route I would want to move in.
Thank you, Randy, for that comment. Jimmy.
Yes, I also echo everyone's comments, and I think that we need more adequate review time and more research and education. So I do agree that we should defer this, and I stand behind all of our other board members who are in agreement with that.
Okay, thank you, Jimmy. Dean Grewal.
Yeah, I also agree with what's been said, and I definitely need more time to review it and get deeper into the issue here. And if more research could be done with the committee, then I'm all for it. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Dean. We still have hands up for James Gomes.
Yeah, I forgot to say one thing, Chair, that, we had a vote of 5-4, and the ones that were against, I would really like, with no responses, I'd like to get a response from them also, telling them why that they voted, did not respond. I'd like to get that cleared up too, since it's such a sensitive matter.
James, can you clarify that you wanted the members who voted no to clarify why they voted no?
Well, the ones with no responses, not
Okay.
saying no, the ones with no responses, why there was no response.
You got it.
I think there were 3 of them, yeah?
Thank you. Thank you, Jimmy. And Diane Leigh.
Thank you, and thank you, staff. I think some clarification in the process of how this was handled would be good. Kind of reflecting on that, as well as particularly when these very technical, highly technical issues come before the board, they require, significant scientific understanding of pesticides and or groundwater modeling and the correlation between the pesticide movement and groundwater. And that's one thing to ask of the board, but for myself, I don't have those capabilities. So what I rely on is being provided sufficient information to make an informed decision. And while the narrative that was provided by Pesticide Branch is helpful, when I rely on the advisory committee's recommendations, it's really helpful with the minutes if there can be specifics noted. And I'll reference the plant industry advisory group. I think I got the right name. A lot of times they will, provide some science as well as kind of a translation of that science by the individual members. And that's really something that I rely on and on a consistent basis. So that's helpful. And what really flagged this for me was a close vote of 5-4. And when I counted the number of committee members there, it looked like there were 10 and one didn't, one wasn't recorded as abstaining or voting. So those kinds of things, just raise red flags for me. And then I just start asking more questions. So I think everybody else is covered along with the testifiers. I appreciate, the members of the community have come forward to testify, as well as Pesticide Branch and Greg Takashima being available. So look forward to hearing more in the future. Thank you.
Diane, and I see Scott and Esther taking notes, so the data that they're requesting, you've heard what they want to hear from us, the statistics and data.
Yes, so it would be hard to track the usage of the products with fluopyridifran just because it's general use. We don't have the data for that. But as far as the other points, we can try and address that at the Pesticides Advisory Committee.
Thank you. Okay, so Siri, oh, wait a minute. There's a hand. Go ahead, Diane.
Oh, I'm sorry. Nathan had, Nathaniel had his hand up
thank
first,
you.
but I have a
I know maybe we don't have data, but don't we know how much is imported? I mean, we can look at sales, right?
We can request sales data, but we don't have the authority to mandate that. Only for restricted use pesticides can we actually track that information.
But we would know, like, if there's 100 jugs brought into Hawaii a year or something, right?
The branch does not keep that information.
Okay.
The only way we would have that information, this is Scott Nishimoto, acting program manager. The only way we would have the information is if the marketplace surveillance inspection is conducted by inspectors and a violation was observed during that inspection, and then the inspector could go back to the retailer and request for sales invoices or receipts, something to that effect. Other than that, we wouldn't have any information about the importation of general use pesticides as long as there is no violation that has occurred.
Thank you. Is that good, Nate?
Yeah, I mean, so I know, but if you don't have a license, you can't use REPs, and I understand that. But if you are using these general use pesticides, the onus is on that user per WPS standard to keep records, to keep REI records, to keep usage records. So the act is pretty much, they're already keeping a lot of that data and being responsible stewards. So, yeah, I'm going to leave it at that. I definitely defer to what everyone else I'm echoing. We need a lot more research done on this. Thank you.
Diane?
Yeah, thank you, Chair. If I may, since this is a little off target for the subject pesticide, but I understand that the branch is working with others to assess the current model of the CLERS. So a study's being done on that. And I guess one of the, pesticide issues don't come before the board often enough for me to have a sufficient background on it. But I had a question about what is the source of funding for groundwater modeling, the source of funding for that, as well as a source for specific studies for pesticides. Is that something that the branch funds, or do we have to find resources? Does the branch need to go out and seek resources from the legislature or partner with Department of Health and UH or other partners in the community? Just want a little bit more information about that. It'll help, I think, inform us more broadly.
This is Scott Nishimoto, Acting Program Manager. The majority of the contracts that the pesticides branch has with other entities typically are funded with the Pesticide Use Revolving Fund. This proposed groundwater review study has not been budgeted for fiscal year 2025. If we have governor's approval, we could potentially tap into the trust funds from the Monsanto settlement, but the majority of contracts that the branch issues are funded through the revolving fund.
Is that where the situation came up that there was not sufficient funds, the 400,000 to study the subject pesticide?
There was concern prior with using PERF funds for additional projects prior to moving payroll off of the PERF into general fund, into moving payroll off of the PERF funding into general funds.
I'm sorry, you're losing me. So you were going to use, what is PERF?
So
Sorry, you're
PERF
starting to
is
use acronyms.
No, sorry, PERF is a pesticide use revolving fund.
And so you were moving those funds to pay for salaries?
Salaries were on the pesticide use revolving fund. They have been moved from that revolving fund into general funds.
Okay.
There has been some additional funding cleared up because of that move. I have expressed concerns about using too much of the revolving fund for projects in the event of potential federal funds being cut in the immediate future.
So right now, they're using their pesticide use revolving fund for programs like this to test water and on, but with the concern that the funding from the federal side may be cut. We're wondering how to fund future programs. So your question is well placed. It's just that right now, the funding that they have is available, but for how long, we don't know.
And the federal funding funds staffing or supplements our staffing with supplements to state budget process, or?
We do have, oh, sorry, yes, this is Scott Nishimoto, Program Manager, Acting Program Manager. We do have 3 positions in our branch that are federally funded. I have expressed concerns about potentially federal funds being cut and having to place positions back into the PERF fund, the Pesticide Use Revolving Fund.
Greg Takeshima, Acting Plant Industry Administrator. To give a little bit more information, based on all of this discussion previously, some of the discussion in the advisory committee on pesticides revolved around, $400,000 for a in situ, on the ground, in field, experiment essentially to verify groundwater leaching, the model. Is that right? is that an effective use for one specific active ingredient? Now, for further ones that go down the line, right, we would potentially be spending a large amount of money. And this is for each active ingredient, each new active ingredient. And Esther, correct me if I'm wrong, but we get active ingredients, I want to say maybe about 2 to 3 new active ingredients that the branch is required to review and push through the groundwater review per year. So, you know, and that really just depends on how the manufacturers are pushing these new products out, right? And their R&D. So, you know, that doesn't necessarily mean that every specific product is going to go through this full groundwater review and also has that, you know, yellowish red color. So we're unsure, maybe it'll leach, maybe it won't. The branch is statutorily required to ensure that the environment is kept watch over. 466-32.1 is the citation for our evaluation, our criteria for pesticides use and new pesticides use. So if anyone wants to go into crazy detail about our requirements for the pesticides branch, feel free, and you know, you folks can reach out to me and I can walk you through the 101s, the 201s, the 301s, and the master's level courses of pesticides.
Thank you, Greg. See, Randy?
Thanks, Chair. Scott, I have a question for you. The PERF funds were taken into general funds when they cut back all the special, so-called special funds from all the departments?
I'm sorry, I'm not
What's the
understanding.
source of your funds?
So the funds that go into the revolving fund are fees that we typically collect. Those would be for certifications, for civil penalties. So that's the source of the funding that goes into that account.
Randy, this is Greg again.
Registration fees and stuff, but you know, I guess the legislature removed, right, all the special funds that were held in different accounts from all the departments. So that was why it was taken away and put into general funds?
He's asking, how did you move the position from the funds into the general fund?
Is your question, Randy, why were the general funded positions moved into the PERF fund and then moved?
No, no, I thought that Scott said that the money that they had in the revolving fund was taken and put into the general funds.
Just to clarify, the PERF fund had been used to pay for a majority of the positions in the pesticides branch, but the funding for these positions had been moved to general funds to pay for the positions now. Maybe I can defer to Greg to add more details.
Yeah, so I believe the question you're actually asking, Randy, is how much do we essentially put back into the general fund every year? We are statutorily required to put back anything above $1 million in the pesticide use revolving fund back into the general use fund. So our cap is essentially our operating and the revenue that we generate from our fees and our licenses, plus the $1 million cap. And then, right, as we spend down, we kind of come down. Generally, we give back between $500,000 and about $1 million a year over the past 3 or 4 years. So, you know, and the branch itself is actually put in a request through the executive legislation that to increase the cap for the pesticide use revolving fund from 1 million to 3 million, because that's essentially what the branch has been operating off of on a yearly basis. So we would generally bring in about 3.5 million. We would use about 3 million. So, you know, the branch is aware of our budgeting and kind of how we've been able to provide programs and projects on top of staffing. So now that staffing is removed from that, we are trying to bump up the amount of programmatic and projects to assist industry.
Okay, understand that. And Scott, you also mentioned that you raised the concern. Who was the concern raised to?
I just had a discussion with Greg. We had budgeted contracts for fiscal year 25 to include additional perf funding based on just some, looking ahead at the future. I just had a conversation with Greg to potentially not max out all of the available perf funding in the event that some of the federal funding gets cut and some of our federally funded positions need to get placed back onto the perf if the federal funding has been cut.
Okay, thanks.
Any other board discussion? Seeing, hearing none. The motion that we're voting on is to defer. I would like to ask Diane if she would like to entertain N's request to amend the motion to add a timeline to it.
Sure, I'm open to that. I don't know what timeline we're looking at. Or whether it's triggered by months or whether it's triggered by specific actions taken by the committee or whether it's triggered by completion of studies or, yeah. So I'm
Then
open.
I'm gonna ask Scott if he can comment on how long it might take to gather the data and statistics the board requests to come back in. Esther? Or Scott?
I think what the board wants is for the branch to go back and discuss with the pesticides advisory committee again, right? To provide more information in the minutes for the board to review and make a decision. So I think the action should be determined on when the pesticides advisory committee will take action on this active ingredient. Am I correct in that?
So Greg Takashima again, acting plant industry administrator. The intent for at least from the pesticides branch is to hold one more advisory or the next advisory committee on pesticides meeting in hopefully February. Hopefully by then the ledge has kind of settled down. We all know how that plays out. But that is the intent for the branch, is to, get a number of the things that we had discussed in the previous advisory committee meeting to the advisory committee again, bring up, there was a lot of robust discussion in terms of all of the agenda items on the advisory committee. And as Janet noted, right, we can do a better job in terms of preparing our advisory committee. So that is, again, the intent is to hold one sometime in February.
Okay, so Diane, would you entertain changing your motion to defer till a date after February?
Yes, that's fine.
Okay. Would you change the motion?
So if Diane is willing, I guess Randy would need to approve this as the second. I think Randy was the second.
Okay with me.
Okay, so
the motion is, I think because both the move on and the second have agreed, it's okay that the motion be revised to reflect essentially a motion to defer this matter until a date after February.
okay, that's the motion in front of us. Calling for the vote. Any recusals or objections? Hearing, seeing none. The motion is passed to defer this item until a date past February 2025. Thank you, Scott. Thank you, Esther. Thank you, board. Moving on to item B2, which is from the Plant Industry Division Plant Quarantine Branch. The request is to allow the importation and possession of monkeypox virus, clade IIB, on the list of restricted microorganisms, Part A, for laboratory research by the University of Hawaii, and 2, to establish permit conditions for the importation and possession of monkeypox virus, clade LLB, on the list of restricted microorganisms, Part A, by permit for laboratory research by the University of Hawaii, and thirdly, determine if the permit conditions are sufficient to assure the possession of monkeypox virus, clade LLB, for laboratory research by the University of Hawaii by permit, presents minimal to no significant impact on the environment. May I have a request to hear, may I have a motion to approve the request?
Motion.
And that was Dane. Thank you, Deputy. Second?
Second, Jimmy.
Thank you. Okay, moved and seconded. Presentation by staff.
Okay. Good morning, Chair and members of the board. My name is Will Leon Guerrero. I'm the microorganism specialist for the plant quarantine branch. And as the chair just read the requests, I will go straight into our results of the subcommittee review. So there were a few questions that was sent to our subcommittee, and the first one was recommend approval, disapproval to allow the importation of the monkeypox virus clade IIB on the list of restricted microorganisms Part A for laboratory research by the University of Hawaii. There were 2 committee members that did not respond on these questions. The ones that did respond all approved. Dr. Lee had a comment, monkeypox virus clade IIB is designated as a BSL-2 pathogen and has minimal effects on the environment. Okay, question 2. I recommend approval, disapproval to establish permit conditions for the importation of monkeypox virus clade IIB, a virus on the list of restricted microorganisms Part A by permit for laboratory research by the University of Hawaii. Once again, 2 subcommittee members did not respond, but the rest did. And Dr. Lee had another comment. My approval is based on BSL-2 plus facility that will be used for the virus, high security of the Jabson building, and the applicant's working experience in virology. And the third question, are the proposed permit conditions sufficient to assure that the laboratory research using monkeypox virus clade IIB, a virus on the list of restricted microorganisms Part A by the University of Hawaii, presents probably minimal or no significant effects on the environment? And the ones that did respond to it, Dr. Wang put probably minimal or no significant effects on the environment. She also commented, safeguards practiced in the laboratory are sufficient to prevent significant effect on the environment. Dr. Lee mentioned that probably minimal or no significant effects on the environment. And then Dr. Stewart made a comment, BEI product information indicates BSL-3, but CDC recommends BSL-2 with BSL-3 practices and personnel vaccination, which is as proposed in the application. And he said there's probably minimal to no significant effects on the environment. And the fourth and final question, are the proposed permit conditions sufficient to assure that the item requested for import presents probably minimal or no significant effects on the environment should it be accidentally released? And the ones that did respond said yes. And Dr. Wang had a comment saying laboratory safeguards practice are sufficient to prevent release, therefore will have no impact to the environment. And so this went to the Advisory Committee on Plants and Animals review on October 11th, and it was recommend approval 7. Nobody disapproved and 1 abstained. And well, we do have the applicant here if anyone has any questions for her.
Thank you, Will. Does anyone from the public wish to give testimony?
No.
Thank you. Board discussion. Hearing none. Oh. Is there one?
Yes, Chair. Just
Oh, yes, I see it.
historically, has this process been done before, or an earlier maybe version or a variety of this virus been imported before through this process?
We've had other viruses go through the board, but not this specific virus. And yes, Japson is capable of containing, they have a BSL-3 level. And if you want more detailed information, we have Dr. Saguna Verma here who can give more details on that, if you'd like to hear about that.
So I'll defer to the chair if there's time for that. It's good to know that the partnership between our lab, I see other members up, so I'll hold my time.
In anticipation of additional questions, Deputy will call the PhD up. Thank you. Any other questions, Dave?
Not at the moment.
Okay, so next up is Ed.
Go ahead.
Oh, okay. Thank you, Chair. I thought Nathaniel.
Oh, wait a minute.
Oh, yeah, no, I'm sorry. I'll wait till after we have the full presentation by the applicant. That's fine.
Oh, okay. If the applicant's gonna make a presentation, I can wait. That's my question was actually for him.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm sorry.
So just for the applicant, I do applaud UH trying to position University of Hawaii as a leader in this research field. But just for us, we gotta answer to the public for everything we bring in. So can we just get a little edified on why monkeypox?
Yeah, thank you. I really want to thank the committee to give me this chance to be here. And I'm Saguna Verma. I'm a professor at the Department of Tropical Medicine and Microbiology, and I've been working there for more than 20 years and on viruses which are considered, high containment, which I started working with West Nile virus, then came to Zika, and they all came through this board. And then we moved to SARS and now monkeypox. And so now why monkeypox? And so, in our field, you want to really be on a cutting edge and want to keep working on new pathogens because, there is every time, we all have seen SARS and, have made us realize that how viruses change and the old world viruses, they come back with new clinical features, and that puts, the whole medical field into, and the healthcare system into a tight spot. And in monkeypox is not a new virus. It is an old world virus, but it was restricted to one area in Africa. But in 2022, the virus changed a little bit. It changed in a way it was good that it became less severe. So as compared to clade 1, which is a select agent, but which has a higher mortality, 10% of infected people, they end up in the hospital with severe disease. So when this virus changed, it became less severe, clade 2B, which is what we are asking to import. But it has spread now
globally. So it came to US in 2022, and then now it has spread to 120 countries. People don't understand that what is happening with this virus. Is it as severe as smallpox or the clade 1? And if it is less, then how do we deal about it? The public health policy, the antiviral discovery, and all those things are lagging because we don't know much about this virus. And so because we have this expertise of working in a high containment facility, our BSL-3 is, I guess, one of very few BSL-3 labs in US. So we feel that we have the expertise and the motivation and the determination to do some cutting edge research, which will lead to some new insights, which will help the public health and the clinical faculty to manage. So I'm a researcher, I'm not a clinician, I'm not a public health policy maker, but my job in this big team of finding knowledge is to find some answers to some questions about disease transmission and disease pathogenesis, and that's what we want to do. I'm sorry, it became a little long, but that's what.
Thank you. Any questions or follow-up, Ann? No? Thank you, and I don't see Nathaniel's hand still up.
I do. I have a few questions.
Go ahead, Nate.
Okay. Well, thank you for coming today. And this is pretty neat stuff. I do have I'm not a data expert on this. I don't know how this stuff works, but I have worked with a few virologists. Can you kind of walk us through very basic containment methods? Because I know part of it, I heard mentioned that vaccination is required, but we all know that that doesn't actually prevent transmission. So if you have your lab techs working with this stuff, how do you ensure that they don't go out into campus and spread?
Yeah. So that is a really very good question, and that has always been our focus when we get any virus or develop any SOPs. So thankfully, in this permit, we are only asking to import virus for doing in vitro lab culture work, not animal work. So the minute you avoid infections in animal, you prevent disease spread or getting, your personnel to get infected. It's highly unlikely, especially for a virus like monkeypox, which is not airborne, like SARS is an airborne virus. So for monkeypox, for me and my students who will be working directly with this virus, there is no way that I cannot say no way, that's not a right thing to say. It's highly unlikely that we will ever get infected unless and until we don't wear any gloves and we cut ourselves and we pour the virus. That's the only way that we will get infected. Otherwise, there is no way. But that said, we will have a requirement that all the students and personnel handling monkeypox virus will be vaccinated. And when I submitted this application, there was not much data about the efficacy of this vaccine for the current clade 2B strain. But in last 6 months, there are 3 publications where they have done this follow-up studies on looking at the antibody titers in the healthcare workers who were vaccinated in 2022 and 2023. And it is pretty encouraging. So this vaccine is going to protect whether we get the virus from the lab or from anywhere else. So that is one thing. Secondly, our SOPs are really, really very well established because we have the same SOPs for Zika and for West Nile. We have double gloves, we have sleeves, we have masks, we have booties, we have gowns. So there is no way that we are exposed. Plus, the live virus is always handled under the biosafety cabinet. So imagine that there is a small area which is under negative pressure, and it has a glass sash which comes till here. So even if I want, my face and cannot go, only my hands with double gloves and sleeves and over gown is handling the virus. So, and everything is under negative pressure. So live virus never sees outside the cabinet. It is either in the -80 or it is handled here, and then or it goes into the. So when we move cultures from this to the incubator, they are kept in a secondary container so that if there is accidental fall, then and there is a spill, then it is inside a secondary container. So And to be honest, I'm pretty proud to say that I've been working in 20 years now at this lab. I or any of my students, we have had no incident. And we have also worked, so SARS, currently my animal experiment is going on with mouse model. And we have no, poking of the needle or cutting or nothing. So, we train, we have very, very rigorous, I think we have one of the most rigorous training in US because we are very careful and we always like to go a precaution, one extra step of precaution as compared to what my colleagues work at Colorado and all that. So we have a facility director who will go through this risk assessment and have proficiency exam every year. And we fail, we make the students come back, check 2 times, 3 times, only when they know everything about risk assessment, spill handling, all those, there are drills every year and we fail students and then, so we make sure that they know what to do. And there is a buddy system, which I don't know, I have it in my application or not. So whenever there is a live virus handling, nobody will work alone. There has to be a buddy. And the PI like me, I need to get a text message on my phone that we are going in and working with SARS, and when they come out, I get a text. And so we have all these things very nicely placed, and it is important. I mean, we take this thing pretty seriously.
Thank you. Good question, Nathaniel. Thank you. Any further questions for the doctor? Nate? Any further questions? Yeah.
I have one more. I'm so sorry. I know you guys are busy. So reading through it too, it's also, we've listed multiple times minimal impact, correct? So in science, I know that we never want to deal with absolutes. I get that part. Is there a worst case scenario? Is there a protocol in place, and how does that work?
So in the environment, if I understand the virus host, there are few, giant pouch rats or some squirrels and, 1 or 2 other animals that have shown to support, virus replication. But I also did research during this application submission that those animals are not found here. But that said, this is still a new virus. There is no way we can say that whatever squirrels we have, whether they can be infected or not. To be honest, I really don't know. Nobody have tested them. But for the virus from our lab to reach them, has to have a human in between. So what we have made sure is that in case we feel that there is a possibility that this person was exposed or there was a cut and then something happened, then that person will immediately be under the monitoring of our clinician, Dr. Cecilia Shikuma, who's an HIV expert, and she is part of this plan. And that person will be isolated. He or she will be monitored. So there will be no way that this person will come in contact with other human beings or pets or animals. So that is the best we can do in this case. And I'm sure that this should contain the spread from one human to the other human. So if we contain the spread from one human to the other, we have contained the spread to the wildlife.
Can I just add something related to the question? In our permit conditions, if there is some kind of accidental release or exposure, UH is required to report that to us. And earlier talks, Saguna mentioned about like if there's a natural disaster, then they have to take that into account, and sometimes they have to destroy what they're working on. If there's some kind of major, like type hurricane
or tsunami. And we did that. We did that a few months ago. There was a storm, right? And we were going to start our animal experiment. We had to postpone it, and there were some cultures in the incubator. We came and nothing happened. There was no power cut and all that, but we came and we aborted the experiment. We have done that. Yeah. Thank you for reminding that.
Thank you. Would there be another question? Nate? No? Okay. Any further discussion by the board? Seeing, hearing none, we'll call for the vote. Any recusals or abstentions?
Objections.
Oh, objection, excuse me, objection. Objections or recusals? The hearing, seeing none, the motion is approved. Thank you, board, and thank you for a good discussion on this, Will.
Thank you.
Okay, I think at this point we'll take a brief break. Is that okay? So 15 minutes, so we'll see you. Well, thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
When things get heavy. I don't. It's in the spirit gonna say, oh. Isn't it your bigger, isn't it cold?
Moving at a steady pace.
Yeah, that was a good one.
Yeah, sure. Actually, it was a good discussion.
I know.
Chair, Chair, you folks are not muted, so I don't know whether the public can hear you or not, so
Oh.
just FYI.
If you could put your cameras back on, then we know everyone is present. Back forward, break, you have to keep rolling.
I think roll when you come back from the break. No, no, I don't think so.
Okay,
Sorry, I didn't think about that.
so we're back from break and I don't see everyone, but let's see. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Red call never tuned in at 10:30. So we're good. Everyone's back. If everyone could turn on their camera, thank you very much.
Everyone's on.
Everyone's on, okay. So thank you for coming back after the 15-minute break, calling us back to order at 10:45. And the next item on the agenda is going to be item C1 from the Agricultural Resource Management Division. This item is to, request for approval to URUS to subdivide TMK 9-1-031-001, including general lease S-3138 Hawaii Land and Livestock LLC into 2 parcels consisting of 18 and 92.106 acres respectively. Second thing is to modify the general lease S-3138 Hawaii Land and Livestock LLC contingent upon completion of the subdivision of the TMK. The TMK is 9-1-031-001, reflecting a reduction in the area from 110.106 to 18 acres and support withdrawal of Governor's EO number 4584 dated May 15th, 2019, approximately 92.106 acres more or less for reversion to the Department of Land and Natural Resources, contingent upon completion of both 1 subdivision of TMK 9-1-031-001 and 2, the modification and approval of general lease S-3138 Hawaii Land and Livestock LLC, Honolulu, Ewa, Oahu, Hawaii. At the request of the HLL attorney, I will be deferring this matter to a later date. This matter is dependent upon the agreement of multiple parties, including Hawaii Land and Livestock, so we will accept any public testimony and then we'll be deferring the matter. The public should be informed that they may wait to testify at a later hearing if they wish. Does anyone from the public wish to testify?
No hands, Chair.
Okay. So hearing none, we'll be deferring this matter to a later date. Thank you. Moving on to item C-3. Request for acceptance for annual renewal of revocable permit for TMK's number, and there's quite a list of them. And this is statewide. May I have a motion to approve the request?
So move, Jimmy.
Jimmy, thank you. May I have a second?
Second.
That was Dane Wicker, Deputy Wicker. Thank you. Presentation by Steph.
Good morning, Chair, members of the board. I'm Branzi Ayo, Property Manager with the Armed Division of the Big Island. This morning, we're gonna go over a request for acceptance for annual renewal of revocable permits for various TMKs statewide. At the end of each calendar year, staff reviews its list of current revocable permits issued statewide. The revocable permits that are in good standing are recommended for renewal. The list of revocable permits statewide that staff recommends for renewal for 2025 is attached as Exhibit A. A location map of the revocable permits to be renewed is attached as Exhibit B. Staff recommends no no rent increases. Staff recommends that the board approve the continuation of the revocable permits listed in Exhibit A on a month-to-month basis effective January 1st, 2025 for a period of 1 year through December 31st, 2025. Thank you.
Thank you, Brandon. Does anyone from the public wish to give testimony?
No hands raised.
Thank you. Recognizing that board member Fred Cowell has joined the meeting. Thank you, Fred. Is there board discussion on the extension of these renewal of these RP? Of these? James Gomes.
Yeah, question I have is, I see some of these RPs that have been as a lease or RP from 2004, 2008. Has any of these been considered to go to long-term?
Yes, so we do have, I mean, speaking from the Big Island, I actually have one that is in process of going, doing the lease conversion. That should be coming up hopefully within the next month or two. The majority of these revocable permits that are existing are in this status because it's landlocked parcels, so we cannot convert to a long-term lease.
Okay, and Brandy, because they're landlocked with, has any of the leasees own property around there and that's the reason why they're landlocked, or they're close by, or can they join? Is there anything like that? No?
So I can just speak for the ones on the Big Island that I'm familiar with, but as far as the ones on the Big Island, access is an issue. They may have agreements with the neighboring parcels to have access, or some of them may lease a property next door, but if they don't own it in fee simple, we haven't done any long-term lease.
So why has it been this long that, you know, the 2004, 2008 to turn it over into a long-term lease? Why have this been on the book so long?
Well, again, speaking for the two that I have on the Big Island, one of them, there was a death in the family, so there was some issues with the business aspect of that structure. And then the other one, I'm also working with trying to decide if he wants a long-term lease or not, and if not, then we're gonna have to go out for to the public to bid out on that property.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
There were other hands up. You seen it? Not at the moment. Okay, any other board discussion? No? Hearing, seeing none. We'll call for the vote. Any objections or recusals? Hearing none, motion is approved. Thank you, Brandon. Items, the next item was item 3, request for conversion of general lease number S-4392, Lois N. Hashimoto, Clive T. Hashimoto, and Lynn N. Tamashiro, lessee, TMK 4, 1-9-001-00011, lot 25, Hanapepe Rice and Kudo lots, Hanapepe Waimea, Kona Island of Kauai, Hawaii. May I have a motion to approve the request?
So moved, Jimmy.
Second.
Thank you. Presentation by staff.
General lease number S-4392 was awarded by the Board of Land and Natural Resources to Toshio Hashimoto and Lois Hashimoto in 1973. In 2013, the lease was assigned to Lois Hashimoto, Clyde Hashimoto, and Lynn Tamashiro. In 2017, the lease was transferred to the DOA via Governor's Executive Order for management purposes. The lessee has successfully grown various types of taro to sell to producers of poi and other value-added products on the island of Hawaii. The lessee is in good standing according to the provisions of the lease and is requesting a conversion of the said lease in accordance with the HDOA to a long-term 35-year lease for the initial lease term, subject to the requirements of the administrative rules, which are stated in the pertinent sections as follows. The department shall require an appraisal for the parcels in accordance with the HAR, impose other lease term provisions, restrictions, and conditions as provided in this chapter and may be required to protect the state's interest, and require the payment of annual lease rents by appraisal and premium computed at 25% of the annual base rents for each year of the leases equal to the number of 7 years that a person occupied the land, but not to exceed 7 years. An appraisal will be ordered pursuant to the HAR for the purpose of determining the fair market rental for the subject parcel. The new appraised annual rental for the lease shall be set for the first 15 years of the term versus 1.5% of gross sales, whichever is greater. Further, the board and lessee mutually agree to cancel the existing general lease S4392 by executing a mutual cancellation of general lease 4392, subject to execution of the converted general lease documenting the effective date so that only one lease is in full force and effect. Since the mutual cancellation of lease is agreed upon and executed by the parties and is not due to breach or default by lessee is eligible and qualified for the new general lease in this respect only. All other eligibility terms must be met to the satisfaction of the board. Staff recommends that the Board of Agriculture, number 1, approve the lessee's request to convert general lease 4392 to a new non-ag park lease for 35 years for the initial lease term subject to the conversion provisions. Number 2, approve the mutual cancellation of general lease 4392 subject to the execution of the effective date of the new general lease. Thank you.
Thank you, Brandy. Does anyone from the public wish to give testimony?
No, that's true.
Okay. Board discussion? Seeing none, I will be calling to the vote. Are there any objections or recusals? Seeing none, the motion is approved. Moving on to item 4, request for approval to cancel general lease numbers S-9000 and S-9008. William Field, lessee, issue the cancellation document and dispose of the parcels to the public by negotiation. TMKs 2, 5-2-001-010 and 016. Molokai Agricultural Park for Honolulu Island of Molokai, Hawaii. We have a motion to approve this request.
So moved, Jimmy.
Thank you, Jimmy. And is there a second?
Seconded.
Thank you. That was Fred Call. Thank you, Fred. Presentation by staff.
The Board of Agriculture awarded general lease numbers S-9000 and S-9008 to William Field commencing on April 1st, 1999, on which he produced papaya, mango, and avocados. Subsequently, Mr. Field left Molokai intending to return. To keep the parcels in active agriculture farming during his absence, Mr. Field hired managers to manage and operate the farming activities on the parcels. However, these relationships eventually terminated on unsatisfactory terms. At Mr. Field's request, Grant Schul agreed to manage both parcels, which were in poor condition at that time. Since Mr. Schul took over managing the parcels, he revitalized the farms and continues to manage the parcels on which he produces papaya for sale on Molokai and statewide. In 2019, Mr. Schul received communication from Mr. Field's wife of his passing while in Thailand and informed the DOA staff shortly after. Mr. Field's wife did not notify DOA staff about his passing. To date, no one has come forward as being named by the appropriate courts as a personal representative for William Field's estate to legally act on his behalf. After reviewing the Hawaii State Judiciary website, no probate matters were opened. As of this date, there are unpaid and delinquent real property taxes. Failure to pay real property taxes is a lease violation. Staff deems the lessee to be in breach and default on both leases due to violations of the lease provisions. The account is uneconomical and impractical to remedy and collect, and staff recommends cancellation of the leases and referral of the accounts to the Office of the Attorney General to expedite resolution of the outstanding lease rent balances due. Staff recommends that the Board of Agriculture approve the cancellation of general lease numbers S9000 and S9008 pursuant to the HAR and terminate all right, title, and interest granted to the lessee therein effective as of the date of approval of this submittal. Authorize issuance of lease cancellation documents to be executed by the chairperson and recorded at the Bureau of Conveyances. Authorize staff to prepare TMK 2-5-2 001-010 and 2-5-2-001-016 for disposition to the public by negotiation. Approve the request to refer general lease numbers S9000 and 9008 as delinquent accounts to the Office of the Attorney General for review and disposition in accordance with the HRS. Thank you.
Thank you, Dragon. Does anyone from the public wish to give testimony?
No hands.
No hands. Moving on to board discussion. We have Nathaniel Oswald.
Yes, thank you. A couple of questions. So, right now those farms are being operated. If I believe you said that Grant Schultz Kumu Farms has been farming that. How long? I remember when Bill, he did pass away. How long has it been that he's been inactive? Like how much time has passed?
You know, unfortunately, I don't have that information. I have not been managing the Molokai area. I'm kind of just filling in. So I can get that information to you though.
And do you have an idea of what the unpaid property tax amounts are?
I don't have that in front of me either.
Or how much leases due, past due?
No, I don't. Unpaid taxes and lease rents.
So what I'm thinking is, being that we're here to support farmers, and if Grant's farming that, if those leases go away, it might be, if he's already farming that and that's a part of his farm plan, it would probably impact him pretty hard. Is it appropriate to offer this up to him, or at least communicate to him that this is happening?
If Mr. Fio had a representative that was named by the courts, then that we could have potentially do an assignment. But because that is that's absent, we need to put it out to the public. And at that point, then Mr. Schul would have an opportunity to provide to submit an application.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. Would you still want me to get that information to you though, as far as the unpaid taxes and the annual lease rents past due?
That would be good. It'd be helpful because I don't know if it's appropriate to reach out to him or not, but I know he's already an existing leasee. So we just want to make sure that we're not negatively impacting his business if we don't have to.
Okay. Can do.
Thank
you. Is anyone liable for those past dues?
It wouldn't be the person that's utilizing the property right now because he doesn't have well, I'm not an attorney, but he's not the lessee on record.
Okay.
So I don't believe so.
It's a clean slate, then you guys. Okay.
Well, yeah.
We'll look at whether or not it's a clean slate for the new people.
Okay.
It's not currently the adjacent landowner's responsibility. But if the adjacent landowner purchases the lease, there may be a debt that might be owed. We'll have to check on that.
Okay, thank you, Brian. Diane?
Thank you, Chair. So my question probably, could be a potential impact for the farmer that's been utilizing the property. So Brandy, in the submittal, it references public negotiation, and typically don't we go out to auction with these, or is that another tool that's in our toolbox that the board can direct staff to do?
So when we do we do a public notice, and normally what we do in negotiations is that we do a sealed bid. So interested farmers can submit their applications. We will determine eligibility for each one of the eligible applicants. Then they would be given an opportunity to submit a sealed bid, and then the highest bidder would get the property.
Okay, so it's the same as the auction then?
Yeah,
Okay,
it's just not, it's not a verbal auction, right? It's just a sealed
Right.
bid.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah.
I don't think I've ever seen the reference to public negotiation. Okay, thank you very much. Appreciate it.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Nathaniel.
Yeah, sorry, one more question. So since I'm assuming since Bill Fowle hasn't been active on this lease, obviously, how does that impact like his water usage? Like I'm assuming someone's paying their water bill, or is that even part of this conversation?
Not for me, because I'm not a part of the irrigation side. I don't know if he has any outstanding irrigation bills that I wouldn't know. But
It's probably
that's
safe to
something that
assume if he's not paying his
I
lease, probably not.
Yeah,
Okay.
That might be a follow-up thing too.
yeah, I could do that.
Looking for other board discussion. Hearing, seeing none. Calling for the vote. Are there any objections or recusals? Hearing, seeing none. The motion is approved. Thank you, Brandy. And since item 6 was heard earlier, the last item on the agenda for Ag Resource Management is item 5, request for consent to mortgage general lease number S-3003 Hawaii Ulu Producers Cooperative Lessee TMK 7-9-016-018 and 019 Honolulu, North Kona, Island of Hawaii, Hawaii. May I have a motion to approve the request?
So moved, Jimmy.
And second,
Second.
thank you, Dane. And presentation by staff.
In 1993, general lease number S-3003, a 25-year lease was awarded by the Board of Agriculture to Kona Producers Cooperative. By extension of general lease 3003, the term of the lease was extended for 25 years to expire on November 30th, 2043. On June 28th, 2022, the Board of Agriculture consented to the assignment of lease from Kona Producers Cooperative to Hawaii Ulu Producers Cooperative. The HUPC facility currently serves as an aggregation center for ulu, breadfruit, kalo, and pala'ai, at which they process, store, and market these products, as well as process value-added ulu products. HUPC is requesting approval to enter into a mortgage in the amount of $1 million for operating funds and to complete capital improvements and upgrades to the Honolulu facility. These improvements include the construction of a building intended for crop intake, the installation of a wash septic tank, and the construction of a temperature-controlled packing room. The planned improvements and upgrades will enable the co-op to quadruple facility aggregation and processing capacity from 500,000 to 2 million pounds per year of Hawaii-grown staple crops, thereby helping the state meet its food self-sufficiency and sustainability goals. The proposed $1 million loan will be led by the Feed the Hunger Fund, who will disperse 500,000 at a 5% interest rate. Mission-driven financing through the Aina Aloha Economy Fund will serve as the participating lender, dispersing the remaining 500,000 at a 5.67% interest rate, resulting in a blended interest rate of 5.34%. The loan is structured as a 7-year loan with monthly interest-only payments and 6 principal payments of $25,000 from 2026 to 2028. FTHF will provide a grant of $50,000 toward the principal with a balloon payment of $800,000 at maturity. The loan is further secured by a junior financing statement on all business assets, including accounts, equipment, and inventory. On October 22nd, 2024, the Board of Agriculture approved the request for the Department of Agriculture's Agricultural Loan Division for a limited guarantee on the loan. An 80% reimbursement of the principal will be provided in the unlikely event the lessee defaults on the mortgage. Staff recommends that the Board of Agriculture approve and consent to a $1 million mortgage on general lease S-3003. Thank you.
Thank you, Brandy. Does anyone from the public wish to provide testimony?
No hand.
No hands raised. Okay, board discussion. Hearing, seeing none, calling for the vote. There was one. Oh, Diane, sorry, Diane, go ahead.
It's okay. Maybe I'm just confused. I've never seen, I mean, tried to read the language several times. So we're being asked to consent to a mortgage on DOA's assets? No.
Well, it's DOA property, right? So we need to consent to put in a mortgage, which puts a lien on the property. So that's what
Right.
we're consenting to. So, yeah.
So, okay, and not that this is gonna happen, but if the co-op was to default, then
The ag
the
note
assets
department,
are the movable pieces, the equipment, things like that, not the infrastructure, not the
Correct.
tangible assets that the DOA has invested, the state has invested.
that's my
in
understanding of it.
specifically.
And then also the DOA has the loans department last month,
Right,
came
yeah.
before, right? So they also have the guaranteed as an extra layer of
Right.
protection for the Hulu
Okay.
co-op. Yeah.
Okay. I've just never seen one of these requests come before the board before, so trying to understand. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Diane. Further board discussion? Hearing, seeing none, calling for the vote. Are there any objections or recusals?
Chair, I'll have to recuse.
You're gonna recuse?
Yes.
Oh, that's right. Thank you. With that noted, I do a roll call. So roll call vote starting with starting with Deputy Director Ryan Kanakaole,
Yes. Yes.
Dr. Parwinder Grewal,
Yes.
Deputy Director Dean Wicker,
Yes.
Diane Lake,
Yes.
Nathaniel Oswald,
Yes.
Fred Cowell,
Yes.
Randy Cabral,
Aye.
and has been recused, and Jimmy Gomes.
Aye.
Chair votes aye, the motion is approved. Thank you. So with that, that's the final item on the agenda for today. However, we still have a informational briefing in the new business section. It's a non-action item, and it's an invasive species action update. I don't see Jonathan in the row. There he is. He's on camera. Go ahead, Jonathan. Jonathan?
Yeah, he actually pressed decline to be honest. He pressed nothing.
Sorry, Chair, I'll have to step out.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Next time. Oh, and we need to go to the next one.
No, we have enough people.
Okay. Jonathan?
Oh.
What happened to Jonathan?
Can you guys hear me? Yeah, we can hear you.
Yes, Jonathan, go ahead.
Yeah, so sorry about that. Jonathan Ho, Plant Quarantine Branch Manager. So I'll do a couple of things. The first is I'll do a little bit of a talk for CRB. Oh, sorry, not CRB, for Act 231. That's the funding that the legislature provided, the $10 million for a variety of biosecurity measures for the state. So the first thing was, so the CRB response, there was $1.1 million allocated. The RFP went out. The closing date was 11/21 of this month, so about 5 days ago. the proposals are in and they're being reviewed. There was one for green waste, 800,000. That RFP is closing on December 2nd of 2024. For Little Fire Ant, 1.1 million given out statewide, and that contract closed 11/21. The RFP closed at 11/21/2024, and the proposals again being reviewed. One of the things for that LFA contract is that they are for pest control operators to do treatments for LFA in residential areas. And the plant quarantine has already started doing some residential surveys based through referrals from the Hawaii Ant Lab and OISC. The first residential survey we did was on 11/18, and it covered about a little over 5.5 acres, about 500 samples. As a result of the outreach in that area, we were able to get another resident who turned in who wasn't in the area, which is positive. So obviously we're working on that to kind of delimit the infestation in that. And then we also have additional residential areas in the Q3 more, so that once the contract kind of gets done, implemented, we'll have sites that are already ready to go for the treatments. For the brown tree snake rapid response, there was about $240,000 that was allocated. We were looking to use it for traps, for our fence line trapping, and for distribution for rapid response. Should a brown tree snake or any other snake be found statewide. We did solicit some bids. The bids that we did get, 2 of them were very, very exorbitant. The cheapest bid we got was $1,600 a trap, and the other one was about a little under $2,000, $1,900 a trap. So they're more than double the cost of what we bought them last time. So we're looking at the traps that we're looking at. We were trying to use stainless steel. The traps have live mice in them, and the mice, as they live, basically corrode a lot of the older traps, which are galvanized. But at the cost, it's prohibitive. They get damaged, they get stolen. So we're probably gonna see if we can get a galvanized price, so that again we can get the counts that we need for distribution statewide. There was $75,000 for Coqui frog, and we're going to use a little under $75,000 for Coqui frog. All of it's going to be used for citric, and it's currently being used on Kauai and on Oahu. On Kauai, it's the Kauai Invasive Species Committee and the PPC and the Plant Pest Control Branch. They've been treating multiple sites on Kauai. On Oahu, plant quarantine in conjunction with OISC has been dealing with a couple sites, Waimanalo and then Palolo Valley. And then the Waimanalo and Kuli'o portions, we're using some of that citric with in conjunction with OISC and also DLNR for drone sprays and a bunch of other things for Koki. We've already purchased some of the citric. We got about 100 bags already. The fund should enable, provided the prices don't change, about $700. We're not buying it all at one time. In that storage, there's some issues with storage and effectiveness. So we're trying to buy it just to make sure that it's the most effective, and again, and to manage storage. 2-line spittlebug, same thing, contracts, RFP went out. Closing date for the proposals 11/21, and again, proposals being reviewed. There was funds, $300K for rose-ring parakeet for Kauai and Oahu. Those just closed, and actually I think they closed today, 11/26. And then Act 231 also provided 20 positions statewide. And because the funds are, the positions are permanent, but the funds are good for 1 year, we're working on 89-day hires into filling those positions, and actually we're actually doing interviews currently for some of those 89 days to see where they best fit. And then lastly, at the last board meeting, the board did the final approval for 4-72 regarding the quarantine procedures and the creation of a guidance document. So I have created a very high level 1-page, or maybe that's a 2-page guidance document spelling out the intent of the regulation and the quarantine procedures that the department would take prior to the implementation of a quarantine. And obviously this was created after the board's submittal deadlines. However, I can provide it to the chair, and we can provide it to the board members. And then I can also have it presented, I think, at the next board meeting for the invasive species action plan update for the next board meeting. The rules did go to small business last week, and the Hawaii Floriculture and Nurserymen Association did attend and then did bring up some of their concerns, which were very similar to the board, what they brought up before the board regarding the guidance document and managing pests and things like that. And after discussing with them and the small business, they understood what the intent of the regulation was, and they did recommend approval to the governor. So now that I have the document, I'm going to be working with industry to kind of disseminate it so that they can kind of see what it is. If there's any clarifications or things that they need or would like to see, we'll work on that. And then obviously for finalization and distribution to industry so they kind of understand what's going on. But that's it. If there's any questions, yeah, please feel free to ask and I'll answer them. Thank you very much.
Okay, are there any comments from the public? No, seeing none. We have a hand from Randy, board member.
Yeah, thanks, Chair. Jonathan, thanks for the update. Appreciate that. And I'm assuming that you will give us updates monthly if you can, especially regarding the guidance document, since that was such an important component of the discussion at the last meeting.
Correct. The intent is to go through this monthly and then or to provide an update to you folks monthly. And I will I'll get this to Marcy, but what I have now, and then after the meeting, she can email it to you folks so you guys can take a look at it. And then obviously, if you have folks that that were interested in, you can disseminate it. And then obviously we'll be working with some of the industry representatives to kind of meet with them as well.
Thanks, Jonathan. And Chair, I do have a question under old business. So
go ahead, please do.
Okay, for Deputy Kanakaole, were you able to find out anything about the so-called surveys of Kapapala and where that stands?
Yes, and I sent an update to Chair Hurd. Let me pull up the update right now. Sorry for the delay, but essentially the our survey or control point has, I think they were expected to complete the survey and send it over to our forestry and wildlife folks either last week or the week before, and then it gets turned over to DAG survey for completion on the maps.
Do you know how long that process will take before you can actually write an EO?
I don't.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Ryan and Randy. Diane.
Thank you, Chair. Jonathan, thank you for the quick action you're taking on Act 221. Appreciate that. I had a couple questions. The little fire ant applications and pest control residential areas, is that solely on Oahu, or are you looking at other islands?
The majority of the funds are slated for Oahu, but every island has a piece of that amount. So there's going to be a Hawaii island, there's going to be in Maui, there's going to be on Kauai as well as Oahu.
Okay. And those are for residential areas only? Yeah?
Yes.
Okay. And then you mentioned the brown tree snake. That would be for distribution statewide if needed. Appreciate that. I think that's all I had questions about. Thank you. Appreciate this.
Thanks, Diane. Daniel Oswald.
Yeah, hi, Jonathan. Thanks again. I have a few questions, and forgive me. You guys are probably, know more about this than I do. But at our port of entry, so like seafaring vessels and airplanes and stuff, when how out of the sheer volume of, like, let's just use containers that come in every week, how much of those are actually getting inspected? Like a random, like a ballpark percentage?
Guesstimation, depending on the goods, probably maybe 10 to 15%. And it's based off of the regulated commodities that are imported. So statutorily, we have authority to inspect at port of entry specific kind of classes of goods. So, for all intents and purposes, agricultural material. So plants, plant parts, cut flowers, fresh fruit and vegetables, other raw or natural or plant material in the raw or natural state, non-domestic animals, known cultures of microorganisms, and soil. So like those kind of things are the things that are inspected. And yeah, generally 10 to 15% as a guess.
Yeah, and how do you treat that? So how would you treat it?
So like treat in terms of like the inspection process?
Yeah, no, you found something that an invasive pest of some sort.
So yeah, so it kind of depends on the pest. But generally speaking, when the inspection is conducted, should the pest should staff find any type of pest, the first thing you're going to do is to contain the commodity in whatever way to prevent further escape and or spread. So for example, if you're doing a produce container at an importer's facility, for example, and the pallet comes out, you're doing the inspection and you say it's full of aphids, for example. Depending on the amount, maybe you're gonna put it back into the container, seal the container up. If it's a single pallet, you might just shrink wrap that entire pallet and then place it in chill. So basically, the main thing is containment.
Right.
Once containment occurs, you're going to do identification of the pest. Is it known to occur in the state? Is it not known to occur in the state? Is the infestation level high or low? All of those things are going to be kind of considered before taking final action. So, for example, if the pest that is found is not known to occur in the state, the commodity will have to be either subjected to a treatment that eradicates the pest. So it could be fumigation, could be heat treatment, whatever the treatment is that's can eradicate the pest. The commodity will either be destroyed, or it will be sent out of state. That's kind of the loop, I guess, from an inspection standpoint.
For fumigant options, so I'm assuming sulfuryl fluoride, phosphate mixed with CO2, methyl bromide, and for organic CO2. Are those 4 methods used?
So it depends on the pest.
Right.
They could be, provided that that they're labeled and or available and effective. generally we work we work with the applicant, and the applicant will find a licensed fumigator that is able to provide a treatment that we approve.
Do you think that so the reason I'm kind of going through all this is I know there was recently a trip down to New Zealand by some staff. I know that Austria, China, New Zealand they have a very robust fumigation treatment solution. Even to the point, I think even in Australia, they have like a ship that things are pre-staged at. Do you feel like that's, you've been doing this for a while. Do you feel like your department is effective? Like, are we getting all the stuff stopped? I know what the answer is no, but I just feel like we're not doing enough service at these entry points. And how could we better serve your team?
Yeah, I guess that's a really hard question, I guess,
It
with,
is.
I guess the idea of I guess the like stopping everything. And I look at regulation as being, I think, reasonable means to achieve the goal. Because I think the reality with the state, we import 90% of our goods. And I don't see that changing, anytime soon. And as long as there is imported goods, there is going to be risks. And so, for example, with plant quarantine, right? Currently, there's 89 staff statewide.
Yep.
And I think to compare to New Zealand, I think per capita, I think they do about, I think they spend about 10 times kind of what we do. So they have so I guess we're there. So there's that. So, like just the resources that they spend is about 10 times the amount. They focus very heavily on pre-entry. So trying to force as much of the inspections, the treatments, compliance agreements, all of that stuff outside the border prior to entry. And one of the advantages they have is that they're a country and that we aren't a state. So, there's federalism, and that kind of does throw off some of that ability. We do some of that, for example, like with Christmas trees. We have a compliance agreement with Washington State and Oregon, where we have them do mitigation measures, reconditioning and things like that prior to entry. And, it's significantly reduced the amount of pests that are found in Christmas trees. But those are very targeted tasks at this point, just based on the number of staff that we have. But finding more ways to do that, I think would be helpful. And again, I think also finding just more staff, the ability to conduct more inspections, eyes on the ground is really the best way. And how do you manage that against, like, I think the economic needs for the state?
So I'm going to make kind of a statement, and it's not really generally directed towards anybody, but I could say in 25 years of farming, it's much more hard for me to ship things from Hawaii than it is to bring them in. And I don't know if that's just my personal experience, but I talked to a lot of different farms, and it's kind of easy to ship in a bald and burlap tree, but it's kind of difficult to ship items to the mainland. And so, is there like are the standards the same, or are there differences at the port of entry? Like, for example, California, are their standards the same as our port of entry in Hawaii?
So I guess this is a little bit of a multifaceted question. So with regards to export, a lot of export regulation, so there is individual states which have very specific requirements for importation on their own. And then you also have the federal component. So I think for most people leaving the state, and I think for most agriculturalists, fresh fruit and fresh fruit or fleshy fruits can't be exported from the state, and that is for fruit flies. So USDA has created basically a federal quarantine of the state of Hawaii, and that has basically precluded the ability for Hawaii to ship most fresh fruit, with the exception of pineapple and I think what Charwell avocado and stuff like that. But pretty much everything else cannot be shipped to the mainland. So there's that. Each individual state has its own specific requirements, and we will work with shippers to meet those requirements at the state level. Generally speaking, I would say most states, I think California, I think is a little different, but I think a lot of the other states, they don't necessarily have super, they don't have a lot of regulatory structure, particularly with regards to import. Their equivalent to plant quarantine spends the majority of their time on export. We're the opposite. We spend the majority of our time on import regulation. And with regards to, I guess, specific regulations, you know, there's a requirement for inspections. Depending on the goods, there are additional requirements for permits, treatments, certificates of origin, things like that. But they're only for a kind of a select group of goods: pineapple, sugarcane, kind of a lot of the older crops that are in the state.
So, Nathaniel, it is a very good question that's been beat up for many, many years, that Hawaii does not currently enjoy parity with the other states as far as export rules, and it is because of the federal fruit fly quarantine. But what we can do is schedule an APHIS speaker, Animal Plant Health Inspection Service, as this issue has been taken all the way up to the USDA. Brian Miyamoto from the Hawaii Farm Bureau has been up there along with Lieutenant Governor, and they've asked the same question to the right people. So perhaps in a future meeting, we could have a speaker or some sort of an excursion to talk about this exact problem that you're experiencing and all other farmers are experiencing as far as inbound versus outbound. If that's okay with you?
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's actually great that we spend more time on this, because I think there's a lot of work that we can be done to help these guys. And just talking to a lot of people in the industry, like even just regarding a little fire ant, there are some solutions, I think. And some of them are relatively straightforward. So I know that there's a lot of anticipation that we need to address this, and how can we address this? And I kind of look forward to having a good discussion about that. Thank you.
Thank you. And I see Jimmy's hand.
Yeah, Chair, are we actively trying to recruit more staff to help out Jonathan? And do we have the funds to do that?
I think, good question. Right now, as we're speaking, there's interviews going on in the next room. So I guess that's active recruitment. The legislature has supported us with positions. We're going back to them this year in this session and asking for more positions. The issue that we have now is for everyone, including the board, to encourage your friends to come and apply. It's, you know, I guess it's called the recruitment notices are up on our website, up on the DHERD website. We are actively recruiting. In fact, I call it always be recruiting. You know, I mean, every place all of us go, we look for recruits. So yeah, long-winded answer to say we are actively recruiting. Jonathan is seeking people to help him. And the nice thing is, people are out there. They do want to work for the department. They see the value, the public service. So, Jimmy, you want to come work for us?
No, I'm too retarded to do that.
But it's a general invitation to everyone on the board and everyone in the public listening as well. So thank you, Jonathan. Very good report. We look forward to your report every month. Before we have the motion to adjourn, thank you. Any other board discussion, any other questions? Other than that, we'll move on to the last item, and that is the date of the next meeting. Next meeting is traditionally the fourth Tuesday, which actually is going to be December the 24th. I'd like to suggest that we meet on the third Tuesday, which is December the 17th. Otherwise, the next meeting, which we would be delaying any agenda items till the fourth Tuesday, which is January 28th. So I'd like to recommend that we meet on the the third Tuesday, December 17th, unless there's, but we're not gonna have quorum, so if I could have a little bit of a hint as to who might not be able to attend on December 17th, either virtually or in person. Hearing, seeing none, then, you know, it allows us to have a good agenda before the end of the year. As we all know, what happened one year when we deferred the meeting in December, the interest rate just exploded in January, and then, you know, we don't know what's gonna happen, so if there's any loans to consider, meeting in December will be considered at the current loan rate, interest rate, so appreciate it. We're gonna have the next meeting, third Tuesday, December 17th. Marcy will be sending out, requests, do you know if you can come or not? Okay, next meeting, by the way, December 17th, will be Brian Yee's swan song for us, so thank you, Brian, for all your years of service. With that, I'm entertaining a motion to adjourn.
So moved, Jimmy.
Thank you, Jimmy. Is there a second?
Seconded, please.
Thank you, is that Fred? Okay, thank you. Seconded. Board discussion? And for once, I'm gonna call for the vote. Any recusals, objections? Hearing, seeing none, meeting is adjourned. Happy Thanksgiving, everyone. Thank you for showing up.
Same to all of you. Happy Thanksgiving.
11:41, thank you. I will say.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.